Book 5. In the morning, when you feel unwilling to rise, let this thought be present. I am rising to the work of a human being. Why then am I dissatisfied if I am going to do the things for which I exist, and for which I was brought into the world? Or have I been made for this, to lie in the bedclothes and keep myself warm? But this is more pleasant. Do you exist then for the sake of pleasure rather than action or exertion? Do you not see the little plants, the little birds, the ants, the spiders, the bees working together to put in order their own particular corners of the universe? And are you unwilling to do the work of a human being? And do you not make haste to do that which is your very nature to do? But it is necessary to take rest also. It is necessary. However, nature has fixed bounds to this too. She has fixed bounds both to eating and drinking, and yet you go beyond these bounds, beyond what is sufficient. By contrast, in your actions you stop short of what you can do. All this goes to show that you do not love yourself, or if you did, you would love your nature and her will. Those who love their own art, they exhaust themselves in working at them, without washing, without food. But you value your own nature less than the turner values the turning art, or the dancer the dancing art, or the lover of money values his money, or the vainglorious man his little glory. And such men, when they have a violent affection for a thing, choose neither to eat nor sleep in order to perfect the things which they care for. But are the actions that concern society as a whole more vile in your eyes and less worthy of your labor? How easy it is to repel and to wipe away every impression which is troublesome or unsuitable, and immediately to be in complete tranquillity. Judge every word and deed that is in accordance with nature to be fit for you, and do not be diverted by the blame or comments from others that follows from it. But if a thing is good to be done or said, do not consider it unworthy of you. For those persons are directed by their own principles and follow their particular feelings and volitions. Do not pay them any regard, but go straight on, following your own nature and the nature common to all. Both of these go by one single way. I pass through the experience meted out by nature until I shall fall and rest, breathing out my breath into that element out of which I daily draw it in, and falling upon that earth from which my father got his seed, and my mother her blood, and my nurse her milk, from which during so many years I have been supplied with food and drink, and which bears me when I tread on it and abuse it in so many ways. You say, men cannot admire the sharpness of my wits. Be it so, but there are many other qualities of which you cannot say, nature has not given them form in me. Show those qualities, then, which are altogether in your power: sincerity, gravity, the ability to work hard, and to put aside pleasure, contentment with what you have, being happy with few things, benevolence, frankness, no love of superfluous tattle, magnanimity. Do you not see how many qualities you are immediately able to exhibit, in which there is no excuse of natural incapacity and unfitness, and yet you still remain voluntarily below the mark? Or are you compelled, through being defectively furnished by nature, to moan and to be stingy and to flatter, and to find fault with your poor body, and to try to please people, and to make great display of doing things, and to be so anxiety-ridden? No, by the gods, but you might have been delivered from these things long ago. Only if in truth you can be charged with being rather slow and dull of comprehension, you must exert yourself about this also, not neglecting it, nor yet taking pleasure in your dullness. One man, when he has done a service to another, is ready to set it down to his account as a favour conferred, Another is not ready to do this, but still in his own mind he thinks of the man as his debtor, and he knows what he has done. A third, in a way, does not even know what he has done, but he is like a vine which has produced grapes, and seeks for nothing more once it has produced its own fruit. As a horse when he has run, a dog when he has tracked the game, a bee when it has made the honey, so a man when he has done a good act does not call out for others to come and see, but he goes on to another act, as a vine goes on to produce again the grapes in season. Must a man then be one of these who act in this sort of way without looking at what he has done? Yes. But this very thing is necessary, the observation of what a man is doing, for it may be said it is characteristic of the social animal to perceive that he is working in a social manner, and indeed to wish that his social partner also should perceive it. Well, it is true what you say, but you do not quite understand what is being said, and for this reason you will become one of those who mark up favours, of whom I spoke before. For even they are misled by a certain show of reason. But if you will choose to understand the meaning of what is said, do not fear that for this reason you will omit any action of social benefit. A prayer of the Athenians. Rain, rain, O dear Zeus, down on the ploughed fields of the Athenians and on the plains. In truth, we ought not to pray at all, or if we do, we ought to pray in this simple and noble fashion. Just as we must understand when it is said that Aesculapius prescribed to this man horse exercise, or bathing in cold water, or going without shoes, so we must understand it when it is said that the nature of the universe prescribed to this man disease or mutilation or loss or anything else of the kind. For in the first case, prescribed means something like this: he prescribed this for this man as a thing adapted to procure health. And in the second case it means that which happens to, or suits, every man is fixed for him in a manner suitable to his destiny. For this is what we mean when we say that things are suitable to us. As the workmen say of squared stones in walls or pyramids, that they are suitable when they fit them to one another in some kind of clear-cut connection. For there is altogether one fitness, one harmony, and as the universe is made up out of all bodies to be such a body as it is, so out of all existing causes necessity or destiny is made up to be such a cause as it is. And even those who are completely ignorant understand what I mean, for they say, it, necessity or destiny, brought this to such a person. And if brought, also prescribed to him. Let us then accept these things as if they were prescribed to us, just as we accept what Aesculapius prescribes. Many as a matter of course even amongst his prescriptions are disagreeable, but we accept them in the hope of health. Let the perfecting and accomplishment of the things which the common nature judges to be good be judged by you to be of the same kind as your health, and so accept everything which happens, even if it seems disagreeable, because it leads to this, to the health of the universe, and to the prosperity and felicity of Zeus. For he would not have brought on any man what he has brought, if it were not useful for the universe as a whole. Neither does the nature of anything, whatever it may be, cause anything which is not suitable to that which is directed by it. For two reasons, then, it is right to be content with what happens to you, the one because it was done for you and prescribed for you, and in a way had reference to you, originally spun with the thread of your destiny from the most ancient causes, and the other because even that which comes to every individual in particular is to the power which administers the universe a cause of felicity and perfection, even of its very continuance. For the integrity of the whole is mutilated if you cut off anything whatever from the conjunction and the continuity either of its constituent parts or of its causes. and you do cut off something as far as it is in your power when you complain at your situation. Just this is in a way damaging to it. Do not be disgusted or discouraged or dissatisfied if you do not succeed in doing everything according to right principles. But when you do fail, return back again and be content if the greater part of what you do is consistent with our true nature, and love this to which you return, and do not return to philosophy as if she were a master, but act like someone with painful eyes who applies a bit of sponge and egg, or as another applies a plaster or a lotion. For thus you will not fail to obey reason, and you will find rest in it. And remember that philosophy requires only the things which your true nature requires, but you would have something else which is not according to your true nature. It may be objected, why, what is more agreeable than this which I am doing? Is this not the very way pleasure deceives us? But consider the ways in which magnanimity, freedom, simplicity, equanimity, piety are more agreeable. For what is more agreeable than wisdom itself, when you think of the security and the happy course of all things that depend on the faculty of understanding and knowledge? Things in their reality are so enveloped and hidden that they have seemed to philosophers, and not a few of them, nor common philosophers, altogether unintelligible. Even to the Stoics themselves they seem difficult to understand. And all the assent we give to what we take in is changeable, for where is the man who never changes? Take your thoughts then to the objects themselves, and consider how short-lived they are and worthless, and that they may be in the possession of a catamite, or a whore, or a robber. Then turn to the morals of those amongst whom you live, and it is hardly possible to endure even the most agreeable of them, to say nothing of being hardly able to endure oneself. In such darkness, then, and dirt, and in so constant a flux, both of substance and of time, and of motion and of things moved, what there is worth prizing very highly, or even making an object of serious pursuit, I cannot imagine. But, on the contrary, it is a man's duty to comfort himself and to wait for the natural dissolution, and not to be vexed at the delay, but to rest in these principles only: the one, that nothing will happen to me which is not conformable to the nature of the universe, and the other, that it is in my power never to act contrary to my God and guardian spirit. For there is no man who will compel me to this. About what am I now employing my own soul? On every occasion I must ask myself this question, and inquire, what have I now in this part of me which they call the ruling mind? And what manner of soul do I have now? That of a child, or of a young man, or of a feeble woman, or of a tyrant, or of a domestic animal, or of a wild beast? Here is how we may learn what kind of things most people will regard as good things. If someone were to conceive certain things as being really good, such as prudence, temperance, justice, fortitude, he would not, with a consciousness of these qualities, put up with listening to the popular saying, "Too many goods to make room," because it will not make sense in those terms. But if a man has first conceived as good the things that appear to most people to be good, he will listen and readily receive as very applicable that which was said by the comic writer. Thus even the majority of people have some sense of the difference. Were it not so, this saying would not offend, and be rejected in the first place, whilst we accept it for an apposite and witty remark on the subject of wealth and the rewards of luxury and fame. Go on then and ask if we should value and think those things to be good, to which after their first conception in the mind of the words of the comic writer might be aptly applied, that he who has them, through pure abundance, has no room to shit. I am composed of the formal and the material, and neither of them will perish into non-existence, as neither of them came into existence out of non-existence. Every part of me, then, will be reduced by change into some part of the universe, and that again will change into another part of the universe, and so on forever. And by consequence of such a change, I too exist, and those who begot me, and so on forever in the other direction. Nothing hinders us from saying this, even if the universe is administered according to appointed cycles of change. Reason and the reasoning art are self-defining powers, sufficient for themselves and for their own works. They move from an apt first principle, and they make their way to the end that is proposed to them. And this is the reason why such acts are named right acts, which word signifies that they proceed by the right road. None of these things ought to be called a man's, which do not belong to a man as a human being. They are not required of a man, nor does man's nature promise them, nor are they the means of man's nature attaining its end. Neither then does the end of man lie in these things, nor yet that which aids to the accomplishment of this end, and that which aids towards this end is that which is good. Besides, if any of these things did belong to man, it would not be right for a man to despise them and to set himself against them. Nor would a man be worthy of praise who showed that he did not want these things, nor would he who stinted himself in any of them be good, if indeed these things were good. But in fact, the more of these things a man deprives himself of, or of other things like them, or when he is deprived of any of them, the more patiently he endures the loss. In the same degree he is a better man. Such as are your habitual thoughts, such also will be the character of your mind. For the soul is dyed by thoughts. Dye it then with a continuous series of such thoughts as these. For instance, that where a man can live, there he can also live a good life. If he must live in a palace, well then he can also live a good life in a palace. Again, consider that each thing has been constituted for some purpose beyond itself, and towards this it is carried, and its end is in that towards which it is carried, and where the end is, there also is the advantage and the good of each thing. Now the good for the reasonable animal is society, community. For that we are made for society has been shown above. Is it not plain that the inferior exist for the sake of the superior? The things that have life are superior to those that do not have life, and of those that have life the superior are those that have reason. To seek what is impossible is madness, and it is impossible that the bad should not act according to how they are. Nothing happens to any man which he is not formed by nature to bear. What happens to you happened to another, and either because he does not see that they have happened, or because he would show a great spirit, he is firm and remains unperturbed. It is a shame, then, that ignorance and conceit should be stronger than wisdom. Things themselves do not touch the soul, not in the least degree, nor have they admission to the soul, nor can they turn or move the soul. But the soul turns and moves itself alone, and it consolidates the things that present themselves to it with whatever judgments it may think proper to make of those things. In one respect, man is the nearest thing to me, insofar as I must do good to men and endure them. But insofar as some people make themselves obstacles to my own business, man becomes one of the things that are indifferent to me, no less than the sun or wind or a wild beast. Now it is true that these may impede my action, but they are no impediments to my volition and disposition, which have the power of acting conditionally and changing. For the mind converts and changes every hindrance to its activity into an aid, and so that which is a hindrance to some activity is made a furtherance to it, and that which is an obstacle on the road helps us on this road. Reverence that which is best in the universe. This is what makes use of all things and directs all things, and likewise reverence that which is best in yourself. This is of the same kind as that. For in yourself also, that which makes use of everything else is this, and your life is directed by this. That which does no harm to the state does no harm to the citizen. In the case of every appearance of harm, apply this rule. If the state is not harmed by this, neither am I harmed. If, on the other hand, the state is harmed, you must not be angry with him who does harm to the state, but show him where his error is. Think often about the rapidity with which things pass by and disappear, both the things which are and the things which are produced. For substance is like a river in a continual flow, and the activities of things are in constant change, and the causes work in infinite varieties, and there is hardly anything which stands still. And consider this which is near to you, this boundless abyss of the past and of the future, in which all things disappear. How then is he not a fool, who is puffed up with such things or plagued about them, and makes himself miserable? For they vex him only for a time, and a short time. Think of the whole substance of the universe, of which you have a very small portion, and of the whole of time, of which a short and indivisible interval has been assigned to you, and of that which is fixed by destiny, and how small a part of it you are. Does another do me wrong? Let him look to it himself. He has his own disposition, his own activity. I now have what the universal nature wills me to have, and I do what my own nature now wills me to do. Let the part of your soul that leads and governs be undisturbed by the movements of the flesh, whether of pleasure or of pain, and let it not lose itself in them, but let it circumscribe itself and limit those feelings to the parts they affect. But when these feelings rise up to the mind by virtue of that reverse flow of sympathy that naturally exists in a body, which is a unity, then you must not strive to resist the sensation, for it is natural, but let not the ruling part of itself add to the sensation any judgment that it is either good or bad. Live with the gods. And he does live with the gods, who constantly shows to them that his own soul is at ease with what is assigned to him, and that it fulfills all the wishes of the guardian spirit that Zeus has given as a portion of himself to every man for his guardian and guide. And this is every man's understanding and reason. Are you angry with him whose armpits stink? Are you angry with him whose breath smells foul? What do you expect of him? He has such a mouth, he has such armpits. It is necessary that such an emanation must come from such things. But the man has reason, it will be said, and he is able, if he makes some effort, to discover where he causes offence. I wish you well of your discovery. Here you have reason. By your rational faculty, stir up his rational faculty. Show him his error, admonish him. If he listens, you will cure him, and there is no need of anger. As they say, where there are neither declaiming actors nor whores. But why so? As you intend to live when you leave the world, so it is in your power to live while you are in it. If you are not permitted to do so, then get a way out of life, yet in such a way as if you suffered no harm by it. The house is smoky, and I quit it. Why do you think that this is any problem? But so long as nothing of the kind drives me out, I remain a free individual, and no man shall hinder me from doing what I choose. And I choose to do what is according to the nature of the rational and social animal. The intelligence of the universe is social. Accordingly, it has made the inferior things for the sake of the superior, and it has placed the superior in harmony with one another. You see how it has subordinated some creatures, coordinated others, and assigned to everything its proper portion, and has brought together the superior beings into concord with one another. How have you behaved hitherto to the gods, to your parents, brethren, children, teachers, to those who looked after your infancy, to your friends, kinsfolk, to your slaves? Consider if you have hitherto behaved to all in such a way that this may be said of you, that you never wronged a man in deed or word, and call to recollection how many things you have lived through and been able to endure, and that the history of your life is now complete and your service is ended. How much have you seen beauty? How many pleasures and pains have you disregarded? How much honor and glory have you spurned? And to how many unkind folk have you shown kindness? Why do unskilled and ignorant minds disturb him who has skill and knowledge? Well, what is the mind that has skill and knowledge? It is the mind that knows beginning and end, and knows the reason which pervades the world and administers the universe through all time by fixed periods or cycles. Soon, very soon, you will be ashes, or a skeleton, just a name, or not even a name, and any such name is but sound and echo, and the things which are much valued in life are empty and rotten and trifling, and like little dogs biting one another, and little children quarrelling, laughing, and then straightway weeping. But fidelity and modesty and justice and truth are fled, up to Olympus from the wide-spread earth. What then is there that still detains you here? If the objects of sense are always changing and never stand still, and the organs of perception are dull and easily receive false impressions, and the poor soul itself is an exhalation from blood, and if to have good repute amid such a world as this is an empty thing, why then do you not wait in tranquillity for your end, whether it is extinction or removal to another state? And until that time comes, what is required? Why, what else than to venerate the gods and bless them, and to do good to men, and to practice tolerance and self-restraint? But as to everything which is beyond the limits of our poor flesh and breath, to remember that this is neither your own, nor in your power. You can pass your life in an equable flow of happiness, if you can go by the right way, and think and act in the right way. These two things are common both to the soul of God and to the soul of man, and to the soul of every rational being, that they are not subject to external impositions, and to hold good to consist in the disposition to justice and the practice of it, and in this to let your desire find its termination. If this is neither my own ill-doing, nor an effect of my own ill-doing, and the common good is not injured, why am I troubled about it? And what is the harm to the common good? Do not be carried along indiscriminately by what may come across in some people as a great loss, but give help to all according to your ability and their deserving, even if they should have sustained loss in matters which are indifferent. On the other hand, do not take such a felt loss to be necessarily a real loss, which is a bad habit of thinking. But just as the old man in the play, when he leaves, asks for the return of his foster child's top, whilst remembering that it is merely a top, so also should you in this case. When you are crying out to the people on your public platform, "Have you forgotten, man, what these things are worth? Oh, yes, but they are objects of great concern to these people. Will you then be made a fool as well? I was once a fortunate man, but I lost it I know not how." But good fortune is something you assign yourself, and a good fortune is a good disposition of the soul, good emotional responses, good actions.